So Mark, sorry, I interrupted you with my whole backstory. Sorry, but you know, just go back to, okay, so I don't know if you can mention names at all, but a scenario like, okay, this company came to you, they had this problem, they kind of told you what the ramifications of that problem were, and their hope that if it's fixed, it would do, and then kind of walk me through a solution and what you might recommend to them.
Usually they want to, a lot of the conversations lately have been, we have questions and we need answers, right?
Okay.
We have been doing our own research and we need to verify if it's accurate or not, or if there's any, you know, errors in the data, if you will, right? They sometimes they'll come up with a problem that needs to be solved. Sometimes they'll have their own idea and want you to basically pressure test it to see if it's flawed in any ways. So I'm being careful in how I present this because I do sign a lot of non-disclosure agreements and I
Okay. All right.
can't name companies and
Yeah.
that. But the situations are like as it applies to consultations that I've done as it applies to energy, it basically there are, for example, like when we're talking about hydrogen fuel, right? And hydrogen fuel cells. That
Was
can
that your expertise at Toyota?
No, but I spent a lot of time researching, developing, being involved in it. I was involved in a portion, like the launch of the hydrogen fuel cell, the Mirai, back in, 2014, 2015. So yes, I have done some work at Toyota with the fuel cell, but I wouldn't say that's my expertise at Toyota, right? My expertise basically evolved by an interest in that area after I left Toyota, doing a lot of research, doing a lot of study, and becoming an expert in say that area, right? But so I do have some knowledge, but then I built on that knowledge to learn other things, right? But for example, a lot of people, when you talk about hydrogen fuel cells, they don't have a clue what you're talking about.
Right.
And they don't understand that even if you talk about just the hydrogen itself, they don't know what does that mean? Where does it come from? Is there different grades of hydrogen? You hear terms like blue hydrogen, green hydrogen, gray hydrogen, so on. But nobody really knows what those are, right? And why are they important, right? And so I spent a lot of time explaining that the hydrogen is just a fuel source to power a basically an electrical generator called a fuel cell. And depending on the type of engineering that goes into that fuel cell, it can accept various hydrogen as long as it's a certain standard purification. And then there's also things like regulators and software and ECUs that have to be configured to make sure that they all run together perfectly. It's not plug and play. There's a lot of companies out there that think, oh, I'll just buy some components, put it together. Oh, I got a fuel cell. No, it doesn't work that way, right? So I do a lot of things like that. Sometimes it's operational improvement. A lot of companies are trying to understand, different ways of doing the same thing, whether it's like forecasting their sales. How do they do it in the automotive world? How do we do it in commercial world? How do we do it in some other type of world, right? And how can we apply it to a different industry? Can we use the same techniques that you use in automotive and apply it to forecast our demand for some other product in another industry? So I do a lot of consulting like that. It's not one customer, it's based on a need that a customer has, and then they go find the best subject matter experts, if you will, that can provide some consulting, and that's where you lend value.